Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom, man. Hope you guys okay week. Hope you made it to the Sabbath okay. And if not, man, hopefully this will be your time to hit that reset button as we prepare for the upcoming week and we close out this week. First and foremost, we want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We do so by way of His only begotten Son, who was an instrument of salvation, right? Who is going to be the crux of this lesson and pretty much the crux of any lesson that we teach here. Before we start, I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and do the blowing of the shofar here. Con. Con, man. So today's video, right? Let's get straight to it. I have it titled "A Public Display of Commitment." A public display of commitment. It's gonna be a little bit different. Today we're gonna be diving into ancient customs, right? We talk a lot about the law, statutes, and commandments. We uphold that to the fullest and to the forefront of everything that we do. But in ancient Israel, we also had customs as well. And a lot of the customs that we had, no, they're not supposed to be held equivalent or above the law, statutes, and commandments, right? But a lot of customs that we did have were symbolic. A lot of customs that we did have were lawful customs, right? So it's not to be misconstrued that these customs were sin, but the sin came in when we were upholding these customs over the laws of God, right? And so a lot of things we see in the scriptures, like customs where the customs of washing of hands. No, it's not a sin to wash your hand before you eat, but it wasn't a law, right? No, it wasn't a sin for Nehemiah to close the gates early before the Shabbat, right? But it wasn't a law, right? These are all customs that we were keeping back in the ancient time. And a lot of times the customs were made for a good purpose, right? They were made for guide rails. They were made for to help us keep the law, right, in a lawful manner. And so today we'll be diving into a custom which was a public display of commitment, right? The custom that we're going to be looking at today, many of us might know today as just a regular piercing in the ear, right? And so today, in today's modern time, you might look at a piercing of the ear of a way of somebody to express their artistic I don't know way of being. You might see it as a fashion statement, right? But in ancient Israel, the piercing of the ear, right, in many shapes and forms, stood for loyalty, love, and commitment, right? We're gonna be diving in that today, right? Let me share my screen real quick, see if I can pull this up, if I can get Google open. Uh, bear with me real quick. I had it, but then I accidentally exited out the page. So in ancient Israel, man, we had this custom where we would pierce the ear, right? And we would do it with an awl. So I'm gonna show my screen real quick, just showing you several pictures of what that would look like. We're gonna get into the scriptures as well. Right here, let me ain't that small behind picture, man? Where is it at? Right here. It's not showing. I know why. Let me stop sharing my screen. and share it the whole way.
I feel like it was big enough for us to see it.
Yeah. But as I was navigating through the internet, it wasn't going with me because I was just sharing a tab right here, right? Something that looked like this right here. We scroll down. I want to point out a few pictures, man. So an awl can look like this. This is a nice little awl. This would be like a fancier awl, right? A awl could look like this, right? So you see that they were different sizes, right? Right here. Here's another one, right? You can see that they were different sizes. See right here. You got them all hanging up right here, right? And it usually came with a hammer. You see what I'm saying? Um, and we're gonna see why it would come with a hammer and what this all was used for. Let me go ahead and pull up scripture real quick. We're gonna start in Exodus, Exodus 21, and this is a breakdown that's not too foreign to us. We've used it before. I remember when we first came out on the street corners. Um, we went out with two brothers of GOCC, another brother that kind of does his own thing, and we was confronted actually by an ex fraternity brother of ours. And you know, when you go out and you start doing this work, people are gonna accuse you of sin and stuff like that. And the brother came out and he said, "Well, if y'all keep the law, and commandments, why are y'all's ears pierced, right?" And you know, I was just patiently waiting for him to get to me and ask me because this is the breakdown I've had even since back then. And it's just a fun fact. If you guys have noticed, I actually gauged my ears, so it's a slightly bigger hole. Um, and it was one. This is one of the reasons why I gauged my ears. Right? I ain't gonna lie. One reason was because I liked the way it looked, but two, this is another reason why. So this is Exodus 21:5 and verse 6. Let's say, do I want to start at 4? Um, we can start at verse 4. Um, I'll click it. Exodus 21:4.
The book of Exodus, chapter 21, and verse 4. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he shall go out by himself.
Right, man. Keep in mind this part, and he shall go out by himself. We're gonna come back to that, but I want to get to the point real quick.
And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free.
Right. He said, I love my master, I love my wife, and I love my children. I will not leave. Right. Let's go to Deuteronomy real quick. Why is he saying this? Why is he having to make a choice between going out free or staying? Right. Let's go to Deuteronomy 15 and verse 17. Deuteronomy 15 and 17. Um, trying to think, where is it at, man? Here we go. We're gonna do 18, right?
Deuteronomy chapter 15 and verse 18. And it reads, It shall not seem hard unto thee when thou sendest him away free from thee, for he hath been worth a double hired servant to thee, in serving thee 6 years, and the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all that thou doest.
Come on, man. It was a custom back in ancient Israel that if a servant, especially a servant of your brother, right, was serving you, he should serve for 6 years. In the seventh year, after the seventh year, he was able to be made free, right? And so within being made free, he had two options to do, right? And we see right here one of the options, as we see in Exodus 21 and verse number 5, right? He could say this: if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife and my children, because he was only able to go by himself, right? Unfortunately, the wife and the children still belong to the master. But if he said that he loved his master, his wife, and his children, he will not go out free, right? Here's the point, verse 6, Exodus 21:6.
Verse 6. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door.
Keep in mind, man, the door, right? The door, right? Keep reading.
Or unto the door post. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever.
Right, man. Right. And so this is where you get that piercing in the ear. The master would take him to the door or the door post, right? And the master shall bore his ear. That's where you see that hammer, and he'd take that awl and then he'd line it up and he'll knock it through, right? The cool thing about gauges too, this is side mark, is that to gauge your ear, you actually use something that looks just like an awl, right? You take it, and the bigger it is, the bigger your gauge will be, right? But you line it up and you knock it through, right? Nowadays, instead of using a hammer, you kind of push it through with your thumb, but at the same instance, it's the same technique, right? So you do it with an awl. I spelled it A-W-L. It could be spelled A-W-L, but can also be spelled A-U-L. And he shall serve them what? Forever. Shall serve them forever, right? So now I'm gonna dive into a little bit about just piercings as it not just physically, but as it relates to us spiritually, right? And like I said, the piercing of the ear, the awl through the ear, was often seen back in the day as a showing of love. Remember, he said that he loved his master, he loved his wife, he loved his kids. It was appeared to be for love, for loyalty, right, and commitment. A lot of times you see piercings also within the nose and all of that stuff for the same reason. There's scriptures on that. We won't bring it out today, but we'll stick to this linear line of logic, right? I'm gonna go to let's go to where I want to go to Galatians real quick, right? Go to Galatians 3:24. So something that's very physical, right, was a custom and could be used as something very spiritual. We're going to go to Galatians 3:24.
It's on you, O.
This is the book of Galatians, chapter 3 and verse 24. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we may be justified by faith.
Right, man. The law was our schoolmaster, and it brought us unto Christ. Why am I bringing this scripture out? Right? The awl was a symbol. So you got to understand the trajectory. Before, the awl was taking place, servitude had to be established, whether it be for the 6 or 7 years, right, or even more than that. And so, but in that time, before that servant, when it was his year of release, right, before that time, he had no choice but to keep the law. The law was our schoolmaster, as it reads, right? This is equivalent to a man or a woman being a child, right? And you're telling them to keep the law. They don't really know why they're keeping the law, but they got to keep the law because my child has to keep the law because if you don't live in my house, that's what we doing, right? But it comes a time when a child becomes an adult and you put away childish things, where you have to make that decision for yourself, right? Just like that man, he had to make that decision for himself, right? That led him to Christ. And what is this decision established? It's a commitment that he's making for life. Because once you put that all through your ear, it's a commitment for life that says what? This piercing that I'm about to get, it shows that I'm no longer serving because you tell me to. I'm no longer serving just out of the practice, but I'm serving because what? Because I want to, right? It's the part of becoming a new creature, right? So there's a lesson within the lesson here. that he's telling his master that I love my master so much, right, that I don't mind serving him for the rest of my life. In the beginning of it, I might have to serve because I had to, right? Whether I fell on hard times, whatever the case may be, I might have to serve because I had to, but now I'm choosing to serve personally, right? And that's where you got to get to in a state of mind, right? And it brings you to this point. Oftentimes in the Bible, we always have these conversations, and it's always about, is there free will in the Bible, right? Our answer to that is no, there's no free will in the Bible, but you do have free choice, right? What's the choice that you have to make, right? You don't have free will, but you have free choice, right? Go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30 and verse 19, right?
Go in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30 and verse 19. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live.
There's going to come a time in your life when you're not a child anymore and you're an adult, right? And you know, if you read between the lines here, yes, this is about an ancient custom of piercing, right? But at the end of the day, it's still about, it's more than that. Without the piercing, right? There's still going to come a time in your life where the Most High is going to call to heaven and the earth to record the day where you know right from wrong, right? And that he has set before you life and death, blessing and cursing, and it's going to be upon you, right, to make the right choice. Because, hey man, there's no free will. There's going to be consequences if you pick the wrong one, but you still have a choice to make, right? Therefore, what? Choose life, right? That both thou, what, and thy seed may live. One thing I like about this is when you go back, he said he's going to make this choice. Why? Because he loved his master and his wife and his kids, right? He's made this choice not just for himself, but he made it for his wife and his kids. And that's what you got to do as the man of the house, right?
Hey, and also too, blessing and cursing, choose life, right? He put before you life and death. Understand, you're going to have to make a commitment. You're going to have to make a display of commitment. That display of commitment could be for good or it could be for evil, right? We see this on the flip side of things in the wilderness. And they said that they'd rather go to Egypt because at least in Egypt, we had this, they got free from their master in Egypt and they wanted to go back. So they made a display of commitment for bad. They didn't want to stand up for the Lord. So you're going to have to make a commitment regardless, right? We just saying to make the commitment for the Most High God, because we display commitments all the time, whether it's worldly or whether it's spiritually. And we have to make the right decision, man, because at the end of the day, it's only two teams, it's black and white. Can't be lukewarm because you're going to get spit out. So once you pick a side, that's the side that you're on, man. That's the side that you're displaying for. If you look like the world, you have displayed that commitment for the world, right? You got to be holy and set apart and display your commitment for the Most High. But Khan,
man, Khan. And that's and we'll get into that later, man. That's a mighty point that you just brought up, though. We'll get into that later. Let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 10, right? Do I want to start? We can start at verse verse 1. Why not? This is Matthew chapter 23, starting at verse number 1.
Matthew 23 and 1, and it reads, you want me to read as written?
Yeah.
Matthew 23 and 1. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you, observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all of their works, they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their I can't really see the word, but they make broad their
Phylactery.
phylacteries, yeah, and enlarge their borders of their garments.
Con.
Verse 6. And love the uppermost rooms at feast and the chief seats in the synagogues.
Right.
And verse 7. And greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi.
Right, man. Because it is one important thing to understand here is that the important point here is that you know, as the ancient custom was, it was a symbol, it was an example, right? But it's not about the earthly human, the earthly master, right? Why is that? Keep reading verse 7.
Verse number 7. And greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be ye not called Rabbi, but be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ,
Right.
and all ye are brethren.
Keep
And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven.
Verse number 10.
Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ.
Right, man. Right. And so I brought this out to say, man, that master that we're choosing to love, choosing to display our commitment for the rest of our life, is not an earthly man, right? It's not your pastor, right? It's not the general of your camp, right? It's not the elders. It's not your bishop, right? It's none of those. It's not your chief priest, right? It's none of those. It's who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, right? That is your master, right? And that's who we're making this commitment to, right? I want to go several places just to display that real quick. Let's go to Romans 1 and 1.
And Salaki, King.
Go ahead.
Even with that, man, I think people like the titles, which, you know, ain't really nothing wrong with it, but people got to understand, you know, what comes with that is you got to uphold that name. You know, a lot of people want to be called a deacon or a pastor or a general, but they don't want to do the things that a general and a pastor and things like that do. You know, it sounds good, but you got to understand you're gonna get held accountable more than anybody else because you are the one in charge. So you have to people gotta always remember that, man. People want to be called rabbi, and they want people to call them just this person that's over everything. But it's like, you know, you gotta know what comes with that. It's a lot that come with that.
That's a good point, man. Right, and that's why. And you know, the bigger thing here is that Christ is telling us, hey, look, man, don't even put that burden on yourself, right? Y'all should all just be looking unto me, looking unto the scriptures to see my example, right? Because the heavy is the head that wears the crown. And a lot of people, they go out their wits to be kings, right? To be leaders, right? And they end up messing up somehow, right? But we have one king that didn't mess up at all. And he's telling us, hey, don't call no man master or rabbi or father, right? Because that's him, and rightfully so, right? This is Paul explaining something, right? I'm gonna go to 3 places. Just Paul just coming out of his mouth and explaining something, right? This is Romans 1 and 1.
This is the book of Romans, chapter 1 and verse 1. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to being a servant of Jesus Christ.
Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ. He said this in Romans 1 and 1. Same reader. Another one. Philippians.
Paul and Timotheus, the servant of Jesus Christ.
The servants of who?
Jesus Christ.
Right. Another one. Titus. Right.
Paul, a servant of God.
Right. Keep reading.
And an apostle of Jesus Christ.
Right. That's the whole point, man. We've become made servants. Matter of fact, let me throw this one in here too. Let's go to Romans. I think.
Man, he didn't say Paul, third in command of Jesus Christ. He didn't say Paul, the mighty bishop of Jesus Christ. He didn't say Paul, the mighty general captain of Jesus Christ, made captain of Jesus Christ over 10,000. He didn't say none of that, man. He just simply said he's a servant of Yahushua the Messiah. That's all he said. So where did all this, the train of thought come? I'm gonna tell you my point of view real quick on why people like to take titles. Is because people aren't spiritual. People are carnal. I know that sounds cliche, but this is what I mean by that. Because people aren't spiritual enough to get their confirmation that God is dealing with them, they need for men and women to praise them and give them a title so that they can feel like God's dealing with them. So, you know, they may feel like, man, I don't know if I'm chosen by God. I don't know. So they go out their way to try to become leaders and all these titles to constantly tell themselves, yeah, I'm this title. God's dealing with me. God's dealing with me because I'm this title. I'm over this many people, because they're carnal. They're not spiritual. If you were spiritual, you would be like the scriptures we going over. It don't matter who's the leader. I'm just a servant. I'm just a follower. I'm just an apostle. I'm just sent to make his name look good.
Right, man. And also understand, man, we was never even created to be a nation to have a leader over us. You know what I'm saying? Right? Now it's been sewn ingrained into our communities and our ways of life now that, you know, the Most High had to make laws and guidelines for the leaders that we set over us. But from the beginning, it was never even supposed to be. You know what I'm saying?
And I just want to add real quick too. That's part of the reason why, you know, a lot of people, and I'm just speaking on a certain aspect of a community, right? That's why you see a lot of people, quote unquote, fall out the truth to an extent, is because of the experience that they have with their leaders. You know, not necessarily because every man that calls himself such is a wicked man, but it's because there are men that deem themselves these titles, and like the brother Obadiah said, a lot of these men don't live up to it, and then things come out, and then people begin to I guess you could say stray from the word of God, because these men call themselves the prophets, these men call themselves the kings, the rulers, the all these titles and superlatives, right? Then things go south, you cause people to go astray. So that's just a little, like the brother Denal just said, he took the original point I was gonna make. We wasn't a nation that was supposed to have a king anyways. So that's just a message to all those who may be young in the faith, who may not, you know, necessarily want to get down with the status quo. It's okay to just be a brother. It's okay to not want to sit in the chief seat, because at the end of the day, being a great brother is better than being a wicked captain over 10,000, right? And 20,000.
Come on, man. That's both mighty points, man. This is Romans 6:18, man. We're gonna get some more on that last point, right?
The book of Romans chapter 6 and verse 18. Being then made free from sin, ye become the servants of righteousness.
Because when we're made free from sin, why did the servant have to make that choice? Because he was made free from his bondage, right? The year of the Lord, the year of release, he was made free from it. He had to make a choice, right? And with that choice, he became servant unto to righteousness, right? He became a servant unto his master. But if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, he no longer was, you know, doing everything just mundane, every day to day. You know what I'm saying? He was choosing. And how much more of a better servant are you going to be when you're not doing something because you're told, but you're doing it because you actually have passion to do it, right? It's the difference between somebody that's getting drug out of bed every morning to put up shots in the gym, right? And he don't really want to be there. He probably gonna miss a lot, versus somebody where you don't got to tell him to wake up early and he already in the car ready to go, right? When he get to the gym, right, he knocking him down. The passion has to be there, right? So you're being made free from sin, but at the same time, you're becoming a servant of righteousness, right? Verse number 19.
Verse 19. I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as ye have yielded your members servants to uncleanness, and to iniquity unto iniquity, Even so now yield your members servants to righteousness unto holiness.
Right, man. Your members is your body, man. Right. So when you're yielding your members to servants to righteousness, you're giving up your body. That's why the symbol of the all in the ear was so powerful, because you're literally making what they call today, when they call piercings or gauges or whatever, they call it self-mutilization, I believe, right? Or they call it something else. I forgot the other term, right? But it's the same thing. You're yielding your body, right, to become a servant. You're saying that your body is not yours anymore. We all know that cliche precept, man, right? Our body's not ours no more, man. You know what I'm saying? Our body is the Lord's temple, made for him to use us how he will, right? So you just I got 2 more points, right? This point right here doesn't really require any precepts. I mean, we could go to them, but I think everybody kind of has an idea of what I'm about to talk about, right? A bonus right here was matter of fact, let's go back to before we talk about it, let's go back to Exodus real quick. We're gonna go to Exodus. What verse was that? I think it was verse 18.
Hey, that also too, like what the brother Obadiah was saying, man, that also goes into counting the cost, because a lot of people want the title of something without counting the cost. You know what I'm saying? And when you don't count the cost, you can overlook certain descriptions of the position you're looking for. And then when you get the position, get fired from that position because you didn't know that position had to do X, Y, and Z. That happens all the time, right? So you got to be able to count the cost. Even when making a display of commitment for the Lord, you got to count the cost that you serving the Lord, good, bad, or indifferent, right? You got to, so when you make that display of commitment, hey, you got to count the cost. We always talk about counting the cost, but that's in everything you do.
Right, man. You got to understand, you're going to be on the chopping block, man. You know what I'm saying? Anything go wrong, it's your fault. You know what I'm saying? You got to take when the football team does bad, right? Are they gonna fire the players, or are they gonna fire the coach? And more than likely they're gonna fire the coach before anything.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing when you take these positions, man. That goes not only just for your congregations and all that stuff. That goes for your own household, man. When things is out of line in your house, you know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing about being a man is that we understand a lot of times, things can go haywire because the Lord wants it to be. Things can go haywire and it can be out of our control. Same thing like a coach, right? Things can go haywire on the team and be out of your control. You didn't know that this guy was going to do that. You didn't know that this was going to happen. But at the end of the day, you got to take it on the chin, because you're the one that's head of all of that, right? My house could be going crazy, right? It could be nothing that I'm doing, but I still got to take that on the chin. When you see Job, everything was going crazy in his life. Everybody that's around him was still on his butt saying, bro, you had to have done something. You know what I'm saying? And so the thing about a leader, you got to take it on the chin. What did Christ, bro? Look at Christ, bro. He had to take it on the chin. He's our king. He's our leader. He didn't do nothing wrong, right? But want to love a wicked nation, and he still got chastised for it. He got called all types of names. He said he had the spirit of Satan on him. He got called a wine bibber, even to the point where he got killed, bro. You know what I'm saying? He had to take it on the chin. And that's the importance of being a leader, of being the head honcho, being a man, right? Sometimes you got to take the fall, even when it's not your fault. Sometimes you kind of just got to, when things are going crazy, man, and the finger's getting pointed at you, and it might not even be your fault. Sometimes you got to just shut up, put your head down, go to work until the situation turn around, right? Because at the end of it, it's like a they say it for the quarterback, when we win, it's everybody, but when we lose, it's all on me. You know what I'm saying? But you got to be a humble quarterback to know that that's how the game go. You know what I'm saying? If I'm leading something, right, and everything's going crazy, I should already know everybody's gonna look to me and be like, bro, I'm not doing my job. And I gotta take it on the chin and be like, and even if I don't feel it, even if I don't feel like that, I gotta look at him in the eye and be like, bro, it's on me. How many times we see quarterbacks do that? How many times we see coaches do that? Right? You can look in their eye, they don't feel like it's their fault, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? That's what you got to do as a leader. That's what our leader did. Christ did. It's on me, right? But again, to the brother's points, that hey, this is a heavy is a head that wears the crown, man. And that's why Christ is saying, man, don't even take this burden on you. Lean on me. You see what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to our nation, man. So that's a big responsibility. Nonetheless, we're going to read this real quick before we get into this next point. Exodus 21:6.
Exodus chapter 21 and verse 6. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges, and he shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost. And his master shall bore his doorpost.
The doorpost. This is a little bonus, that I want to dive into. The scriptures are deep. Everything everything in the scriptures has a reason, man. You're right. Why are we bringing him to the door? Why are we bringing him to the doorpost? Right. Several things, man. The doorpost, right, was often a covenantal type of thing, right? It symbolized not only that home, right, but the ways of that home. Why do I say that? In Egypt, I'm just asking questions, right? Brothers, feel free to answer when I answer. In Egypt, what happened when we wanted what? The death angel to pass over.
You said what happened?
Yeah.
The Lord told us to put blood on the doorpost.
The Lord told us to put blood on the doorpost, right? In Deuteronomy, man, we was commanded to put what they call now the Methuselahs on the what?
Mezuzahs
on the what?
Door.
On the doorpost, right? So it was a covenantal thing to say this right here, right? Let's go to Joshua, man. You probably already know where I'm going, but it was a covenantal thing to say this. Joshua 24 and 15. Think.
Turn. Joshua 24 and
verse
15.
Lie. It's to the top.
Con. This is it. Joshua 24 and 15. I think it's brother
Azrael.
Brother Azrael, I think.
Joshua chapter 24 and 14. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day.
What? It said, choose you this day, man. Highlighting again, man. You got to make that choice. You got to make that. It's going to come a time where you got to make that choice. It says, choose you this day whom you will what? Whom you will serve, right? This all in the ear was a symbol for. Keep reading.
Choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Right. That's what the doorpost is signifying, right? When you go to your master's doorpost and he hammers that all in your ear on his doorpost, it's saying that you will serve his household for the rest of your days. Your blood is now on his doorpost, just like the blood of in Egypt, right? Meaning that your master is going to cover you too, right? They all work. Is the doorpost was often used as a covenantal tool back in our ancient customs, right? Even so much, but I do want to point out that before we move on, that it was to say that as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, man, right? And I want you guys to understand that. But moving on, right? We even see a similar action taking place right here, right? Because at the end of it all, we're choosing to become servants, right? Servants to Christ. But I think in Titus is where he said that he was a servant to God and a servant to Christ, right? And I bring it up for this reason right here. Let's go to Philippians 2 and 7. right?
Con, it's the book of Philippians, chapter 2, and verse 7. It says, "But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men."
You know what this is? You know what this is really putting emphasis on, man. When it says he took upon him the form of a servant, it's saying that he made the choice to be a servant of God. That's what it's saying. He made the choice. Just like we got to make the choice, right? Whom we will serve. We got to make the choice who we will commit to forever. He made the choice to be a servant of God. And when he did that, he didn't speak his own words no more. He didn't do his own actions, right? He was the servant for God to the Most High forever. And you know the funny thing is, right? I think that's all the precepts I had, right? The funny thing is about that is that when he became a servant to God, right? What did he have to do?
Well, yeah, go. He
What you
started
mean?
going.
Yeah.
Man, what you mean?
What did Christ had to do when he became a servant to God, to the Most High?
Talking
Yeah,
about when he got
pierced.
baptized?
You gotta get pierced on the cross
He had to get pierced
to the
right?
doorpost.
He got pierced to what? It wasn't an actual doorpost, but it was the wood or whatever, right?
I don't like
Yeah.
the way that question was phrased, though, because you said when he became a servant.
When he became a servant to the Most High, he had to do something. He had to
But
die.
technically, he was a servant before that point.
You gotta.
I get it.
As a servant of the Most High, Christ's cup that he had to drink was he had to die, but before he was died, he had to get pierced, right? He had pierced in his hands and he got pierced in his feet, and it was to some wood, right? It wasn't an actual doorpost, but at the same time, right, we see that wood symbolizing that doorpost in a sense, if you got eyes to see and ears to hear, right? And I thought that was kind of interesting as well. But
Slot.
Go ahead.
Now I was gonna say, man, going back to the discussion we was talking about just titles, and I think a lot of times people get certain people get these titles and they forget that they servants, and they don't look at themselves as servants. They'll probably get offended if a brother could say, "Bro, you ain't no general, you a servant." It might get offended by that because they don't look at themselves as servants no more when they get these names. Not all brothers, but some brothers look at themselves as, I'm better than them. Yeah, I'm going out teaching, but I got a higher name, so they don't look at themselves really as lowly. Like
They don't
Paul.
even want to be mentioned as brothers. You call them brother. I'm not no brother. I'm a captain. I'm a soldier. I ain't no brother. And it's been to our demise, man. It has. I'm not gonna lie, like it don't have pros and cons because it can provoke you to good works to try to reach those things. But is it really worth it if what's provoking you is not spiritual? If it's all rooted in vanity, then your provoking is in vain.
Con, man. Real quick, I want to find a video that I seen, man, and I thought it was pretty interesting. If I can find it.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, too, that we have a lot of people like that don't longer really, they forget their main purpose is to serve. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really kind of sad because when you think about how every leader should rule, it literally says verbatim that he that is the greatest among you is the greatest servant. It's what it say. And that's something that we shouldn't forget as a people, no matter what status you reach in life. That's why reading Proverbs 38 and 9 sometimes is kind of good for you, because it reminds you to keep things in a perspective. Like, sometimes the Lord give you too much food, you get full, and now you forgetting who the Lord is. You're not doing what you used to do because the Lord didn't bless your plate. He didn't bless your table. You forgot that you didn't went through certain situations. You forgot really how to be relatable, on a I guess you could say a noble scale.
Con. Let me share my screen. One last thing I'm gonna share, man. I thought this was interesting, man. Right. So, and there's customs out there in the world, Africa, a lot of ancient Aztecs and Mayans did ear stretching and stuff like that. But in this, want to make sure my audio is going to be able to share. In this, they say something in this video that I thought that was kind of interesting, and I'll play it real quick, right?
Among some tribes, stretched ears are believed to fight off evil spirits, as well as witchcraft. This body modification has continued to take place for centuries and is incredibly spread throughout the world, from tribes in Africa to the Western world in Europe and North America. Among some,
I thought that was weird, man, and really, man, it's really I think my mind was just piecing things together too much, because it kind of now that I think about it, kind of is conflating 2 points. But I thought it was interesting that they do it to avoid evil spirits, right? And then just thinking about the doorpost point, and how we put the blood on the doorpost for the death angel to pass over us, right? And how when we get the all, we're against the doorpost and they knock it through. And it's a covenantal act as well. Thought that was interesting. Nonetheless, man, that is the video for today. A public display of commitment. It's an outward appearance, man, that has a deeper meaning spiritually, right? Back then in the day, we used to do these things to show our love and loyalty and commitment to our earthly masters. We now have a spiritual master, right, who was proclaimed to be our only master, right? And I'm not saying this to go out and pierce your ear or nothing like that. I do raise the point that it's a ancient custom that we have done in the past, right? And me personally, I don't see nothing wrong with doing it in essence to choosing the master that you're going to serve forever, which is Christ, right? It surely does beat wearing a Jesus piece around your neck, right? That cross that was never commanded for us to do, nor do we see in scripture of us doing. It surely beats getting a tattoo of Caesar Borgia on our arms. You know what I'm saying? And how much better will it be that it is rooted in biblical principle if you do choose to go that route and get your ear pierced or whatever, right? And I thought it was an interesting point. Throughout the scripture, we do see a lot of things that we're prohibited to do, as far as get tattoos, as far as shave our heads and shave our beards and stuff like that. But this is one custom that we did, and it had good principles behind it, and even better principles now if you apply it spiritually to our spiritual master. And it's a good way to publicly display what your commitment for the Most High and Christ, right? It's a little bit of a different video today. Hope you guys thought it was interesting. Hope you guys were a little bit edified. Hope you guys learned something new if you didn't really know anything about the all. And deeper than that, I hope you guys understood the whole point of choosing this day and making a self-proclaimed choice, knowing that the law was our school master. We might have did it mundanely, but now we're choosing to do it for the right reason. We're choosing to do it because we want to do it, right? And that we have a passion to do it now, right? Does any brother have anything else to say? Anything else to add?
Nah, man, my lesson though, man, my lesson.
Shabbat shalom. Shalom. With that being said, man, giving all honor and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we do so by way of His only begotten Son, who is an instrument of salvation for the nation. Who you can now make a public display of commitment if you choose to, right? He also said, remember, if you're not helping to gather, you're helping to scatter. Therefore, gather yourselves together, O nation, not desire. So we can get up out of here, man. We'll see you guys next time. Shabbat shalom. We say shalom.